The champagne flute slipped from my fingers, shattering against the polished marble floor in a cascade of crystal shards and golden liquid. For a heartbeat, the entire dining room of Celestino's fell silent. Every conversation paused, every fork suspended midair. Every eye turning toward the clumsy server who had just disrupted the carefully orchestrated elegance of Manhattan's most exclusive Italian restaurant. Mi dispiace, I whispered, dropping to my knees to gather the broken pieces, my cheeks burning with humiliation. The heat of shame crawled up my neck as I heard the familiar click of Alessandro's expensive shoes approaching. Nadia. His voice was soft, deadly. Kitchen. Now. I rose on trembling legs, glass fragments clinking in my apron pocket as I navigated between tables of Manhattan's elite. Old money socialites, Wall Street executives, and the kind of men whose names appeared in newspapers only when they wanted them to. My shift had barely started, and I was already failing. Again. The kitchen's fluorescent lights assaulted my eyes after the romantic dimness of the dining room. Alessandro waited near the dish station, his arms crossed over his pristine white shirt, his expression carved from ice. That's the third mistake this week, Nadia. The third. He held up 3 manicured fingers. Celestino's has a reputation. We don't hire clumsy girls who... I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. The words tumbled out desperately. I couldn't lose this job. Not when my younger brother's medication cost $800 a month. Not when our landlord had already given us a final notice. Not when this was the only thing standing between us and the street. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Alessandro's eyes narrowed, studying me with the calculated assessment of someone deciding whether I was worth the trouble. Finally, he sighed. One more chance, Nadia. But you take the back stations tonight. No VIP tables. Understood? Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees nearly buckled. Yes. Thank you. I won't. Go. Table 6 needs water refills. I escaped before he could change his mind, grabbing a fresh pitcher and returning to the controlled chaos of the dinner service. The back stations were the restaurant's Siberia, small two-tops near the kitchen door, couples celebrating anniversaries on modest budgets, businessmen entertaining clients they didn't particularly like. It was a demotion, a message that I was one mistake away from unemployment. But it was still a job. The evening settled into its familiar rhythm. I moved between tables with practiced efficiency, refilling glasses, taking orders, delivering plates of handmade pasta and wood-fired seafood that cost more than I made in a week. My feet ached in the required black heels. My lower back throbbed from hours of standing. But I smiled through it all, because that's what you did when survival depended on tips and the mercy of men like Alessandro. Around 9 o'clock, I noticed the new bartender. Celestino's had employed the same bartender, Luca, a 60-year-old Neapolitan who made Negronis like art, for as long as I'd worked there. But tonight, a younger man stood behind the bar, perhaps late 20s, with the kind of nervous energy that didn't belong in a restaurant where calm competence was currency. I approached the bar to collect drinks for table 8, watching as the stranger fumbled with a cocktail shaker, his movements jerky and unpracticed. "Where's Luca?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Called in sick." The man didn't meet my eyes, focused intently on measuring vodka with hands that trembled slightly. "I'm covering from the agency." Something cold slithered down my spine. Luca never called in sick. In 3 years, I'd never seen him miss a single shift. Not for holidays, not for his daughter's wedding, not even when he had the flu so badly he could barely stand. I collected my drinks and returned to my tables, but my attention kept drifting back to the bar. The replacement bartender moved with the awkwardness of someone unfamiliar with the space, constantly checking his phone, his gaze repeatedly sweeping across the dining room as if searching for something. Or someone. Table 12 had been seated while I was distracted, a party of 6 in the restaurant's most prestigious corner booth, the kind of seating reserved weeks in advance for people whose names carried weight. I couldn't see their faces from my position near the kitchen, but I caught glimpses of expensive suits and the kind of quiet authority that didn't need to announce itself. Alessandro himself was attending to them, which meant they were important. Celestino's owner only served tables personally for a very specific clientele, the kind who preferred discretion over celebrity, power over fame, the kind who made the city run from shadows. I was refilling water at table 6 when I noticed the man. He sat alone at table 9, positioned with a clear view of the corner booth where Alessandro was opening a bottle of wine with theatrical precision. The solitary diner had ordered nothing. No drink, no appetizer, nothing that would justify occupying a table during peak hours. He just sat there, checking his watch every few minutes, his leg bouncing with barely contained tension. My grandmother's voice echoed in my mind, the warnings she'd whispered before she died. Trust your instincts, Habibi. When something feels wrong, it is wrong. I moved closer, pretending to adjust the settings on a nearby empty table. From this angle, I could see the man's hands resting on the white tablecloth. His right hand kept drifting toward his jacket pocket, fingers curling and uncurling in a rhythm that spoke of anticipation, preparation, fear. Then I noticed the way he was sitting, not relaxed, into the chair, but perched on its edge, weight distributed forward as if ready to bolt. And his eyes, when they swept past me without recognition, held the flat intensity of someone mentally rehearsing violence. My pulse quickened. I glanced back toward the bar. The replacement bartender was watching table 9, a look passing between him and the solitary diner that lasted less than a second but communicated volumes. Recognition. Coordination. A plan. The pieces assembled themselves in my mind with horrible clarity. The regular bartender suddenly sick. A stranger taking his place. A nervous man occupying a table without ordering, positioned perfectly to watch the VIP booth. Repeated glances exchanged like signals. This wasn't coincidence. This was an operation. My hands went cold. I'd grown up in Brighton Beach, in a neighborhood where you learned early to recognize the signs of trouble, to know when to look away, when to run, when to keep your mouth shut and pretend you'd seen nothing. My father had worked security for Russian clubs until a heart attack took him when I was 15. He'd taught me to notice patterns, to trust my gut, to understand that violence announced itself in subtle ways before it arrived. Every instinct I had screamed that something terrible was about to happen. I looked toward table 12, where Alessandro was laughing at something one of the guests had said. From my angle, I still couldn't see their faces clearly, but I could see enough. 6 men in tailored suits, their posture radiating the kind of confidence that came from never needing to prove themselves. One of them would die tonight if I didn't act. But what could I do? Tell Alessandro his restaurant was hosting an assassination attempt? He'd think I was hysterical, wasting his time with paranoid fantasies. Call the police? They'd never arrive in time. And besides, involving law enforcement in whatever this was felt like signing my own death warrant. No. If I was going to warn someone, it had to be direct, immediate, and it had to be silent. I grabbed an order pad from my apron and a pen, my mind racing through options and discarding them just as quickly. I couldn't approach table 12 directly. Alessandro would never allow a backstation server near his VIP guests. I couldn't shout a warning without triggering whatever violence was planned. I needed another way. My eyes fell on the small table near the kitchen entrance, the one used for staging dishes before they went to the dining room. A plate of pasta waited there, ready for delivery. The check presenter sat beside it, the kind of leather folder we use to deliver bills with discretion and class. An idea formed, desperate and insane. I grabbed the check presenter and my pen, flipping it open to the blank receipt inside. My hand shook as I pressed the pen to paper, knowing I had seconds to make this work, seconds to communicate everything I'd observed in a way that wouldn't be dismissed as madness. The words came in a rush, scrawled in handwriting made jagged by fear. Bomb under table 9. Don't look exit now. I underlined each critical phrase with enough pressure that the pen nearly tore through the paper. The message was stark, impossible to misunderstand. If I was wrong, I'd look like a fool. If I was right and they ignored me, people would die. If I was right and they believed me, I'd have just involved myself in something that would follow me for the rest of my life. But I'd seen my father carry the weight of inaction, the guilt of staying silent when his instincts screamed warnings. I'd watched it eat at him until his heart gave out under the stress. I wouldn't make that same mistake. I grabbed the pasta plate with my left hand, the check presenter with my right, and walked toward table 12 with every ounce of false confidence I could summon. Alessandro saw me coming, and his expression darkened immediately. Nadia, what are you? The kitchen sent this out for the gentleman, I said smoothly, my voice steady despite my hammering heart. Compliments of the chef. It was a terrible lie. The kitchen never sent out complimentary dishes without Alessandro's approval, and he knew it. But before he could protest, I was already moving past him, approaching the head of the table where a man sat with his back partially to me. "Scusi, signore," I murmured, placing the pasta plate in front of him while simultaneously opening the check presenter and setting it beside his wine glass. "From Chef Lorenzo, with his regards." For the first time, I saw his face clearly. He was perhaps 40, with the kind of features that would have been classically handsome if not for the hardness in them. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw shadowed with designer stubble, dark eyes that held intelligence and something far more dangerous beneath. His hair was swept back in the Italian style, silver threading through black at his temples. A watch that probably cost 6 figures gleamed at his wrist. This was a man accustomed to power, to obedience, to getting exactly what he wanted when he wanted it. And right now, he was looking at me with mild annoyance at the interruption. His gaze dropped to the check presenter. I watched his expression shift as he read the message. No visible change to anyone else watching, no widening of eyes or sharp intake of breath. But I saw the micro-adjustments. The slight tightening of his jaw, the fingers that had been relaxed against the tablecloth curling slowly into a fist, the pulse that jumped at his throat. He read it once. Then again. His eyes lifted to mine, and for 3 eternal seconds we stared at each other across a gulf of class and danger and impossible circumstances. In those 3 seconds, I saw him make his assessment. Was I genuine, or was this a trap? Could he trust a random server he'd never seen before? What did I have to gain from warning him versus what I had to lose? I held his gaze steadily, willing him to see the truths in my eyes, to understand that whatever was coming, it was real. Something in my expression must have convinced him. He reached for his wineglass with deliberate calm, took a measured sip, and set it down with the precision of a man doing exactly what he'd always intended to do. Then he stood, his movements unhurried despite the death I'd warned him about. "Gentlemen," he said to his companions, his voice smooth and controlled, "I've just remembered an urgent call I need to make. Please, continue without me." The others started to rise, clearly intending to follow, but he waved them down with casual authority. No, stay. Enjoy. I'll only be a moment." He stepped away from the table, not rushing, not running, moving with the kind of confidence that suggested this was a minor inconvenience rather than an escape from assassination. As he passed me, his hand briefly touched my elbow, a gesture so quick I almost missed it, but the warmth of his fingers burned through my sleeve like a brand. Then he was walking toward the restaurant's side exit, the one that led to the private rooms, and beyond that, to the street. I stood frozen, the empty pasta plate trembling in my hands, watching him disappear through the doorway. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought everyone must be able to hear it. At table 9, the solitary diner's head snapped up. He'd been watching the corner booth, waiting for something. A signal, a moment, a window of opportunity that had just closed. Confusion flashed across his face, followed quickly by panic as he realized his target had vanished. His hand dove into his jacket pocket. Time slowed to a crawl. I saw him pull out what looked like a phone, saw his thumb move toward the screen, saw the desperate calculation in his eyes as he weighed his options. The replacement bartender was moving now too, abandoning his post, crossing the dining room with purpose. And I understood, with horrible clarity, that whatever they'd planned was about to happen anyway. If there really was a bomb under table 9, it was going to detonate whether its intended target was present or not. Table 8 was directly adjacent. A young couple celebrating an anniversary, their faces bright with joy. Table 7 held a family with 2 small children. Table 10 was occupied by elderly women who'd been coming to Celestino's every Thursday for years. They would all die if I was right. "Everybody get down!" The scream tore from my throat before I could think, before I could calculate the consequences. "Get away from table 9! Now!" The dining room erupted into chaos. Some people froze, staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Others scrambled to their feet, chairs scraping against marble, wine glasses toppling. Alessandro was shouting something, his face purple with fury. The man from table 9 lunged toward me, murder in his eyes. And then the world exploded. The blast wasn't as massive as movies made them seem. No ball of fire, no building-shaking shockwave. But it was enough. Table 9 lifted off the floor, wood splintering, marble cracking, the concussive force slamming into me like a physical wall. I flew backward, my body hitting something hard. A wall, maybe. or another table. Pain erupted across my shoulder and ribs. My ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. Smoke filled the air, acrid and choking. Through the haze and the ringing and the pain, I saw bodies on the floor, saw blood spreading across white marble, saw Alessandro crawling toward the kitchen, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. The young couple from table 8 were down, not moving. The family with children were screaming, the sound reaching me as if from very far away. And the man from table 9 was gone, either fled or blown apart. I couldn't tell which. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. Tried to call out, but my voice emerged as a weak rasp. The world tilted sideways, darkness creeping in at the edges of my vision. The last thing I saw before unconsciousness claimed me was a figure appearing in the doorway. The man from table 12, his expensive suit torn and dusty, his dark eyes searching the carnage until they found me. Then everything went black. I woke to the sterile smell of hospitals and the steady beep of machines monitoring my survival. My entire body ached with the deep, bone-level pain that spoke of serious injury barely avoided. My left arm was wrapped in a cast, my ribs were taped, and when I tried to sit up, agony lanced through my shoulder and forced me back down with a whimper. "Easy." A woman's voice, professional and kind. "You've got a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, a fractured ulna, and more bruises than I can count. You're not going anywhere for a while." I forced my eyes to focus on the nurse adjusting my IV drip. She was middle-aged, with kind eyes and the calm competence of someone who'd seen worse. "The restaurant," I managed, my throat raw. "The people, 4 dead, 12 injured, 3 critically." Her expression was somber. "You saved a lot of lives by warning everyone, though. If you hadn't shouted when you did, the death toll would have been much higher." 4 dead. The words hit me like a second explosion. 4 people who'd gone to dinner expecting nothing more than good food and conversation. 4 families who would never be whole again. Because I hadn't acted fast enough. Because I'd hesitated. Because... "There's someone here to see you," the nurse said gently. "He's been waiting since you came out of surgery. Should I send him in?" Before I could answer, the door opened. The man from table 12 entered my hospital room with the same quiet authority he'd displayed at the restaurant, though his tailored suit had been replaced with dark slacks and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His hair was slightly disheveled, and a bandage decorated his left temple, but otherwise he appeared untouched by the violence that had destroyed his evening. Our eyes met, and something passed between us. Recognition, assessment, 1,000 unspoken questions. The nurse excused herself discreetly, leaving us alone. He stood at the foot of my bed for a long moment, studying me with those dark, intelligent eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the slight accent of someone who'd learned English as a second language, though his command of it was perfect. "Nadia Volkov." He said my name like he was tasting it, testing how it fit in his mouth. 24 years old, born in Brighton Beach. Father deceased, mother deceased. Currently supporting a younger brother with severe asthma. Working 3 jobs to keep him alive and keep you both housed. The clinical recitation of my life should have angered me. Instead, it just made me tired. "You investigated me. I investigate everyone who saves my life." He moved closer, pulling a chair to my bedside with deliberate care. "I needed to understand why a server would risk everything to warn a stranger about a bomb she had no business knowing about." "I didn't know about a bomb," I said quietly. "I just saw patterns that didn't fit, men who didn't belong. Looks that meant something. You saw what my own security missed." Something like respect flickered in his expression. "Or perhaps what they were paid to miss." The implication hung heavy in the air between us. Someone inside his organization had betrayed him. Someone had allowed the fake bartender access, had ensured the regular staff member called in sick, had positioned everything perfectly for an assassination that should have worked. "The man from table 9? I asked. "Dead. Triggered the explosive when he realized the plan had failed. Took himself and 3 others with him rather than face capture." His jaw tightened. "The bartender escaped in the chaos." "I'm sorry." "Why?" His gaze sharpened. "You have nothing to apologize for. If anything, I owe you a debt that I can never fully repay." "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would have stayed silent." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together. "Anyone would have looked away, assumed it wasn't their problem, avoided getting involved in something that could get them killed. You didn't. You acted, despite the risk, despite having no reason to care whether I lived or died." The intensity of his focus made my breath catch. Up close, I could see details I'd missed in the restaurant. The faint scar that cut through his left eyebrow, the intelligence that burned in eyes a shade darker than espresso, the way his hands moved with unconscious grace even in stillness. This was a dangerous man. Everything about him screamed power and violence barely contained. And yet, sitting here beside my hospital bed, he seemed almost vulnerable. As if my actions had unsettled something fundamental in his worldview. "My name is Dante Marchesi," he said finally. "And I would very much like to know how a Brighton Beach girl working at Celestino's learned to recognize assassination setups." The name hit me like ice water. Dante Marchesi. Even I, who avoided mob politics like a religion, knew that name. The Marchesi family controlled half of Manhattan's less legal enterprises. Everything from construction contracts to waste management to protection rackets that operated with such efficiency, they were practically legitimate businesses. They were dangerous, powerful, untouchable. And I just saved their boss's life. My father worked security. I heard myself say, the words coming from somewhere outside my conscious control. He taught me to watch people, to notice when things didn't fit patterns. He said the best security was prevention, seeing problems before they became violence. Your father was a wise man. Dante's expression softened almost imperceptibly. I wish I could have met him. He would have told me to run from men like you. Smart man. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Are you going to run, Nadia Volkov? I should have said yes. Should have demanded he leave, should have cut all ties before they could form, should have protected myself and my brother from the kind of danger that radiated from Dante Marchesi like heat from a fire. Instead, I found myself asking, would it matter if I did? No. His honesty was brutal, absolute. You're already involved. The people who tried to kill me know you warned me. They saw you shout, saw you save me, saw their plan fail because of your intervention. Running won't change that. Fear crystallized in my stomach, sharp and cold. They'll come for me. They would have. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and took my uninjured hand in his. His fingers were warm, calloused in unexpected places, gentle despite their strength. But I won't allow that. You saved my life, Nadia. Now, I'm going to protect yours. I don't want protection from the mob. Then think of it as a debt being paid. His thumb traced circles on my palm, the gesture absent, almost unconscious. My family has codes, traditions that go back centuries. When someone saves a Marchesi's life, that person becomes sacrosanct, untouchable, under our protection for as long as they live. That sounds like ownership. It's partnership. His eyes held mine with uncomfortable intensity. I'm offering you safety, Nadia. Not just for you, but for your brother. The best doctors for his asthma. A home that isn't falling apart. Freedom from working yourself to death just to survive. It was everything I needed. Everything I'd been fighting for since my parents died and left us alone in a world that didn't care about orphans from Brighton Beach. Medical care that might actually help Alexei breathe without struggling. An apartment where the heat worked in winter. The possibility of sleep that wasn't interrupted by panic about overdue bills. All I had to do was accept help from a man who killed people for a living. What's the catch? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. No catch. Just understanding. He squeezed my hand gently. You're part of my world now, whether you want to be or not. I'm simply offering to make that reality more comfortable. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The door burst open before I could respond. A young man in scrubs entered, his face anxious. Mr. Marchesi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation. Dante was on his feet instantly, his entire demeanor shifting from gentle to lethal in a heartbeat. Where? The parking garage. 2 men asking about her. The young man's eyes flicked to me nervously. Security detained them, but get her brother here, now, and triple the guard on this floor. Dante's voice was pure command, expecting instant obedience. Nobody gets near this room without my personal authorization. He turned back to me, and I saw both the man who'd sat by my bedside and the killer who ruled half of Manhattan warring in his expression.
I need to handle this. But Nadia...
He leaned down, his hand cupping my face with unexpected tenderness.
You're safe. I promise you that. Whatever comes, you're under my protection now.
Then he was gone, moving with predatory grace toward whatever violence waited in the parking garage. I lay back against my pillows, my mind reeling, my hand still warm from his touch. 4 days ago, I'd been a nobody server trying to survive in a city that ate people like me for breakfast. Now, I was in a hospital bed with the Marchese family guarding my door, killers hunting me in parking garages, and a mob boss who looked at me like I was something precious and breakable. My grandmother's warnings echoed again. When something feels wrong, it is wrong. But this didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. Like somewhere in the tangle of fate and choice and random chance, this moment had always been waiting for me. This man. This danger. This impossible beginning to something I didn't have a name for yet. Outside my window, Manhattan glittered in the autumn darkness, beautiful and merciless and full of secrets that could kill you if you weren't careful. I'd just saved the life of one of those secrets, and now, God help me, I was going to have to live with the consequences. Alexei arrived at the hospital 20 minutes after Dante left, escorted by 2 men in dark suits who looked like they could break a person in half without breaking a sweat. My brother's face was pale, his breathing labored even with the inhaler clutched in his fist, his 14-year-old frame too thin beneath his oversized jacket.
Nadia!
He rushed to my bedside, his hands hovering over my injuries as if afraid to touch me. They said there was an explosion. They said you were hurt. I tried to come, sooner, but they wouldn't let me leave the apartment until... I'm okay. I reached for him with my good hand, pulling him into an awkward hug that made my ribs scream in protest. I'm okay, Melyash. Just banged up.
You look terrible.
His voice cracked, tears threatening.
Your face is all bruised and your arm will heal. I promise.
I pulled back to look at him properly, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the wheeze in his breathing that meant he needed a treatment soon.
How are you? Did you take your medication this morning? Yeah, but we're almost out again. The pharmacy said insurance denied the refill and... He stopped, his gaze sliding to the 2 guards positioned by the door. Nadia, who are these people? Why are there men with guns outside your room?
Before I could formulate an answer that wouldn't terrify him, the door opened again. Dante returned, his knuckles split and bleeding, his expression carved from stone. But when he saw Alexei pressed against my bedside, something in his features softened almost imperceptibly.
You must be the brother.
He approached slowly, non-threateningly, keeping his damaged hands behind his back.
Alexei, yes?
My brother stared at him with wide eyes, recognition and fear warring in his expression.
Even a 14-year-old from Brighton Beach knew what Dante Marchese represented. Don't be afraid, Dante said quietly. I'm here to help your sister, not hurt her. She saved my life, and now I'm going to make sure she's safe. That includes you. We don't need help from...
Alexei started, his voice taking on the defensive edge he used when social workers or teachers got too close to our circumstances.
Yes, you do.
I squeezed his hand, cutting off the protest.
Alexei, listen to me. Something happened tonight. Something dangerous. And these people...
I gestured to Dante and his guards.
They're going to protect us until it's safe again.
Protect us from what?
From the men who tried to kill me,
Dante said bluntly, earning a sharp look from me. But he held my gaze steadily.
Your sister deserves honesty. So do you. There are people who want to hurt her because she interfered with their plans. I won't let that happen.
Alexei's hand tightened in mine.
For how long? As long as necessary.
Dante pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again.
I've arranged for both of you to move into a secured apartment in Tribeca. Medical care for your asthma, including the medications you need. Security that will keep you safe while you continue school. We can't afford... It's not a transaction.
Dante's voice was firm but not unkind.
It's a debt I'm paying. Your sister risked her life for mine. The least I can do is ensure hers is worth living.
I watched my brother process this information, saw the internal struggle playing out across his expressive face. We'd spent 9 years fending for ourselves, trusting no one, accepting nothing that came with strings attached, Every instinct we developed screamed that help from a man like Dante Marchesi came with a price we couldn't afford to pay. But Alexei was also smart enough to recognize reality when it stared him in the face.
Okay,
he said finally, his voice small.
But if you hurt my sister, I don't care how many guns you have. I'll find a way to make you pay.
The corner of Dante's mouth lifted in what might have been respect.
I would expect nothing less. Your sister is lucky to have you.
A knock at the door interrupted the moment. A woman entered, late 30s, elegant in a way that suggested money and taste, with sharp eyes that assessed everything in a single glance.
Mr. Marchesi, the situation in the garage has been handled.
Her gaze flicked to me, then to Alexei, calculating. And I've arranged for the apartment as requested. It will be ready within the hour.
Thank you, Sophia.
Dante turned back to me.
Sophia Russo, my chief of security and the person who will be coordinating your protection. Anything you need, you ask her.
Sophia approached my bedside with the confidence of someone accustomed to command.
Miss Volkov, I need to discuss security protocols with you. Your brother's school, your work schedule, approved routes and contacts. The more information I have, the better I can protect you.
I don't have a work schedule anymore, I said quietly, the reality sinking in.
Alessandro fired me. Before the explosion, he sent me a text saying I was terminated for gross insubordination and disturbing the guests. Alessandro is an idiot,
Dante said flatly.
And he's currently in surgery having his leg reconstructed. When he wakes up, he'll learn that Celestino's has new ownership. You're welcome to return to work there if you wish, though I'd prefer if you didn't.
I stared at him.
You bought the restaurant? I bought the building that houses the restaurant, and several adjacent properties. The previous owner was surprisingly motivated to sell after his establishment became a crime scene.
Dante's expression was unreadable.
Consider it an investment.
In what?
In making sure you have options.
He glanced at his watch, then back to me.
The doctors want to keep you for observation for another 48 hours. Sophia will remain here with a full security detail. Alexei will be taken to the new apartment and settled in. When you're released, I'll come personally to collect you. I don't need you to collect me. I can... Nadia.
He stopped me with a hand on my shoulder, his touch gentle despite the authority in his voice.
I understand independence. I respect it. But right now, 2 different organizations want you dead because you prevented their assassination attempt. One of them already tried to get to you in this hospital's parking garage. Please, let me keep you alive long enough to argue about your autonomy later. The logic was sound, even if I hated it.
I looked at Alexei, saw the fear he was trying to hide behind teenage bravado, and made my decision.
48 hours. Then we discuss what comes next. Fair enough.
Dante stepped back, nodding to Sophia.
Take care of them. Anything they need, make it happen.
He headed for the door, but paused at the threshold, glancing back at me.
Nadia, thank you. For my life, and for trusting me with yours.
Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my brother, a mob security chief, and the growing understanding that my life had been permanently altered by 5 words scrawled on a receipt. The apartment in Tribeca was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. The kitchen had appliances I'd only seen in magazines. There were 3 bedrooms, each larger than our entire previous apartment, with bathrooms that featured heated floors and rainfall showers. The furniture was modern and expensive, the kind of pieces that belonged in design catalogs. Alexei wandered through the space with his mouth hanging open, touching surfaces as if to confirm they were real.
"This is insane,"
he breathed, staring at his bedroom, which had its own bathroom and a desk setup that looked like something from a tech magazine.
"Nadia, this is absolutely insane."
"I know." I lowered myself carefully onto the living room couch, wincing as my ribs protested. The hospital had released me that morning with a prescription for pain medication I couldn't afford, which Sophia had filled without comment at a pharmacy that seemed to expect her arrival. Now I sat in an apartment that cost more per month than I made in a year, wearing clothes that had been purchased for me by people I didn't know, under the protection of a criminal organization that had killed the men who tried to reach me in the hospital parking garage. The surreal had become my new normal in less than 72 hours.
"There's food in the refrigerator,"
Sophia announced, emerging from her security sweep of the apartment.
"A housekeeper will come twice weekly to maintain things. Groceries will be delivered every Monday. Alexei, I've arranged for a car service to take you to and from school. I can take the subway like always," my brother protested. "You can't."
Sophia's voice was firm but not unkind. Not until the threats against your sister are neutralized. The car service is non-negotiable. So is the security escort. Alexei looked at me for support, but I just shook my head. Don't argue. Please. He slumped in defeat, then perked up slightly. Can I at least tell my friends about the apartment? No, Sophia and I said in unison. The situation is temporary, I added, even though I didn't believe it. The less people who know where we're living, the safer we are. Tell your friends we're staying with relatives while our building is being fumigated. After Alexei retreated to his new bedroom to test the internet speed, Sophia sat across from me, tablet in hand. We need to discuss long-term arrangements, she began. Mr. Marchese has authorized a protection detail for you. Indefinitely. 2 guards rotating 12-hour shifts, positioned discreetly. You'll have a panic button connected directly to our emergency response team. There's a safe room in the master bedroom closet. Reinforced door, independent air supply, communication equipment. This is temporary, I repeated, needing to believe it. Once you catch whoever tried to kill him, there will always be someone trying to kill him. That's the nature of his position. Sophia's expression was matter-of-fact. And now, by association, there will always be people who see you as leverage against him. That doesn't change, Nadia. Not in our world. I'm not in your world. You are now. She pulled up something on her tablet, turning it so I could see. This is footage from the restaurant's security cameras. The moment you warned Mr. Marchese. It's been seen by every family in New York, every organization that does business with the Marcheses, every enemy who wants them destroyed. I watched myself on the screen, moving toward the table with desperate determination, placing the check presenter in front of Dante. Even in grainy security footage, my fear was visible. You're famous now? Sophia continued quietly. The Brighton Beach girl who saved Dante Marchese. Some people think you're incredibly brave. Others think you're his secret lover, that the assassination attempt was staged to draw out traitors. Still others believe you're an intelligence asset, planted to gain his trust. I'm none of those things. I'm just a survivor who saw something wrong and acted. I know. Sophia closed the tablet. But perception matters more than truth in our world. What people believe shapes how they treat you. Right now, you're under Mr. Marchese's personal protection, which makes you untouchable to most, but it also makes you a target for anyone bold or desperate enough to try. The weight of it pressed down on me, crushing. I thought I was saving one life. Instead, I trapped myself in a web of violence and politics that I barely understood. What do I do? The question came out smaller than I intended. You adapt. You learn. You trust Mr. Marchese to keep you alive. Sophia's expression softened slightly. He's good at that, keeping people alive. When he cares about them, there's nothing he won't do to ensure their safety. He doesn't know me. He can't care. You saved his life without hesitation, without knowing who he was, without expecting anything in return. Sophia stood, preparing to leave. That matters to a man like Dante Marchese more than you can possibly understand. She headed for the door, then paused. He'll come see you tonight, after he handles some business. Be patient with him, Nadia. He's navigating unfamiliar territory, too. After she left, I sat in the expensive silence of my new prison, staring out at the Hudson River and wondering how my life had derailed so completely. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. How are you settling in? DM. I stared at it for a long moment before responding. Overwhelmed. This apartment is too much. His reply came almost instantly. You deserve comfort after what you've been through. Is Alexei okay? He's exploring his room. I think he's planning to live in the bathroom. A pause then. The tub has jets. I'd live there too. Despite everything, I smiled. There was something surreal about texting with a mob boss about bathroom features. When are you coming by? Around 8, if that's acceptable. I have some things to discuss with you. Should I be worried? Not about your safety. About that, never. But there are complications we need to address. I sent back an acknowledgement and set the phone down, my stomach knotting with anxiety. Complications. In Dante Marchese's world, that word probably meant someone else had tried to kill him, or a rival family was making moves, or a dozen other scenarios I couldn't even imagine. I stood carefully, my ribs protesting, and made my way to the master bedroom. It was absurdly large, decorated in soft grays and whites, with that promised safe room hidden behind what looked like a normal closet door. I tested it, found it sealed with a biometric lock that Sophia had programmed to recognize my fingerprint. The bathroom was indeed spectacular, all marble and glass, and that tub Dante had mentioned, big enough for 2 people with jets that probably cost more than a car. I caught sight of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Bruises mottled my face in shades of purple and yellow. My left arm was still casted. Dark circles under my eyes spoke of pain and exhaustion, and the kind of stress that aged you years and days. I looked like I'd been through a war. Maybe I had. A soft knock at the bedroom door startled me.
Nadia?
Alexei's voice, uncertain.
Can I come in?
Of course. He entered slowly, his expression serious in a way that made him look older than 14.
Are we safe here?
The question deserved honesty. I sat on the edge of the enormous bed and gestured for him to join me. I think so. These people, Dante's people, they're very good at what they do, which is killing other people.
Which is protecting their own.
I took his hand.
I know this is scary. I know it's not what we wanted. But Alexei, you have to understand. Those men at the hospital, they wanted to hurt me. If Dante's people hadn't stopped them... I know.
His voice was small.
I'm not stupid, Nadia. I know what almost happened.
He looked at me with eyes too old for his face.
What happens to me if something happens to you?
The question gutted me. We'd danced around it for years, this fear that haunted both of us. That one day, I wouldn't come home from one of my jobs, or I'd get sick, or some random violence would take me away and leave him alone again.
Nothing is going to happen to me,
I said firmly. I promise you, Malyash.
I'm going to be fine. We're both going to be fine.
You can't promise that.
I
can, and I do. I pulled him close, ignoring the pain in my ribs. We've survived everything else. We'll survive this too. We sat like that until his breathing steadied, until some of the fear leaked out of him. Eventually, he pulled away, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand.
The apartment is pretty cool, though,
he admitted grudgingly.
It really is. And the guy, Dante, he seems not as bad as I expected.
I thought about Dante's gentle touch, his careful concern, the way he'd looked at Alexei with something like respect.
No, not as bad as expected.
You like him? It wasn't a question.
I barely know him. But you like him?
Alexei was too perceptive for his own good.
I can tell.
Before I could formulate a response that wasn't a lie, the apartment's intercom buzzed. Sophia's voice crackled through.
Mr. Marchese is here. Shall I send him up?
I glanced at the clock. 7:45. He was early.
Yes, send him up.
Alexei gave me a knowing look that was far too mature, then retreated to his room.
I'll be gaming, with the door closed, and headphones. Very loud headphones.
You're not subtle, I called after him.
I'm 14. I'm not supposed to be.
His door clicked shut, leaving me alone to face whatever complications Dante Marchese needed to discuss. I finger-combed my hair, winced at the reflection that showed me still looking like a disaster, and gave up on appearing presentable. If he wanted to see me looking like I'd been exploded at, that was his problem. The knock came exactly at 8 o'clock. I opened the door to find Dante dressed more casually than I'd ever seen him. Dark jeans, a gray sweater, leather jacket. He'd shaved since the hospital, revealing the sharp angles of his jaw, and his hair was slightly damp as if he'd showered recently. He looked younger like this, less like a crime lord and more like a man. "Hi," I said, suddenly feeling awkward in my own borrowed apartment.
"Hi."
His eyes traveled over me, cataloging injuries, assessing my condition.
"How are you feeling?" "Like I got blown up 3 days ago." "Fair assessment."
He held up a bag I hadn't noticed.
"I brought dinner. I wasn't sure if you'd eaten." "You brought dinner?" "Chinese from that place on Mott Street. I remembered you mentioning once at the restaurant that you loved their dumplings."
He paused.
"Is that weird? That I remembered?"
It should have been weird. Instead, it was oddly touching.
"Come in."
I stepped aside, letting him enter. "Alexei's in his room. We can eat in the kitchen." The kitchen was all clean lines and expensive appliances, most of which I had no idea how to operate. Dante moved through it with surprising familiarity, pulling out plates and chopsticks from drawers he somehow knew contained them. "You've been here before," I observed. "I own the building. I use this apartment sometimes when I need somewhere quiet to think." He began unpacking containers of food. "But I'll find somewhere else now that you're here. Your privacy is important." We settled at the kitchen island, and for a few minutes we just ate in comfortable silence. The dumplings were exactly as I remembered. Perfect pockets of pork and ginger that made my mouth water despite everything. "Sophia said there are complications," I ventured finally. Dante set down his chopsticks, his expression growing serious. "The men who tried to kill me work for the Kozlov organization. Russian mob, based in Brighton Beach. They've been trying to move into Manhattan territories for the past 2 years. My stomach dropped. Brighton Beach. My neighborhood. The place I'd grown up, where Alexei still went to school, where everyone knew everyone else's business. "They know where I'm from," I said quietly. "They know everything about you. Where you grew up, where you went to school, who your friends are. They've already approached several people you know, asking questions." He reached across the counter, his hand covering mine. "I've had people quietly spreading the word that you're under Marchese protection. It should keep most people from talking. But Nadia, you can't go back there. Not for a while. My brother's school is being handled. I've arranged for enhanced security around the building during his hours there. Guards who look like normal staff. But you, specifically, need to stay away from Brighton Beach until this is resolved." The unfairness of it burned. I'd saved his life, and now I couldn't even go home. Couldn't walk the streets where I'd grown up. Couldn't visit my parents' graves at the cemetery on Ocean Avenue. "For how long?" "I don't know yet." His honesty was brutal. "The Kozlovs are unpredictable, violent. They don't follow the traditional rules that govern our world. Until I can negotiate a peace or eliminate the threat entirely, it's not safe." "And if you can't do either?" "Then we adapt. We find a new normal." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, the gesture becoming familiar. "I know this isn't what you wanted. But Nadia, I need you to understand something. The moment you warned me, you became mine to protect. Not in an ownership sense, but in a responsibility sense. Your safety is now as important to me as my own." "Why?" The question burst out before I could stop it. "Why do you care so much? You don't know me. I'm just a server who got lucky reading a situation. You're not lucky. You're exceptional." He stood, moving around the counter until he stood beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and woody. "In my world, everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle, a scheme, a reason for their actions. You had nothing to gain from warning me. You could have looked away, stayed safe, let me die and collected your tip and gone home." His hand came up, cupping my face with infinite gentleness. "But you didn't. You risked your life, your job, your safety for a stranger. Do you know how rare that is? How precious?" I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His touch was doing things to my ability to maintain any kind of emotional distance. "My father taught me to do the right thing," I managed, "even when it's hard." "He taught you well." Dante's dark eyes searched mine, looking for something I wasn't sure I could give. "I've spent 15 years in this life, Nadia. 15 years surrounded by violence and betrayal and people who would sell their own mothers for advantage. And then you appear, this Brighton Beach girl with bruised knuckles and brave eyes, and you remind me that goodness still exists in the world. I'm not good. I'm just trying to survive. You're better than you know." He leaned down, his forehead resting against mine in a gesture so intimate it made my heart stutter. "Let me protect you. Let me give you the life you deserve. No strings, no obligations, just let me do this one decent thing. Nothing comes without strings in your world? Then let me be the exception." His breath was warm against my lips. "Please, Nadia, let me be different for you." The moment stretched between us, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. I knew I should step back, should establish boundaries, should protect myself from the inevitable heartbreak of caring for a man who lived with death as his constant companion. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, into the warmth and safety he offered, into the impossible fantasy that maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. "Okay," I whispered. "But I need you to be honest with me. About everything. No secrets, no protecting me from ugly truths. If I'm in this, I'm in it with my eyes open. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his expression.
Deal. No secrets?
Starting now. What happened in the parking garage? The men who came for me? His jaw tightened.
They were neutralized.
Meaning killed. Meaning they will never threaten you again. He didn't look away.
Didn't soften the truth. I told you, Nadia. In my world, some problems are solved with violence. I won't apologize for protecting you.
I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to be real with me.
Then here's real.
He stepped back, putting distance between us as if he needed the space to say what came next.
I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things. I'll probably do more terrible things before this is over. People will die because of decisions I make. Blood will be spilled, and I won't lose sleep over it if it means keeping you safe.
The raw honesty of it should have terrified me. Instead, it clarified things in a way that pretty lies never could. Thank you, I said, for not pretending to be something you're not.
Thank you for not running when you see what I am.
We stared at each other across the expensive kitchen, two people from different worlds trying to find common ground in the wreckage of an assassination attempt.
I should go,
Dante said finally.
You need rest, and I have business to attend to. I know.
I walked him to the door, suddenly reluctant to see him leave.
When will I see you again?
Tomorrow. I thought perhaps we could have dinner, somewhere quiet, unless you're not ready.
I'm ready.
The words surprised me with their certainty. Text me when and where. He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from dangerous to devastating.
Good night, Nadia Volkov. Good night, Dante Marchesi.
After he left, I stood at the door for a long moment, my hand pressed against the wood, my heart racing with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Alexei emerged from his room, headphones around his neck.
So, you definitely like him.
Shut up and go to bed. I'm just saying, you have that look, the one from movies when the girl is falling for the guy even though she knows it's a terrible idea.
It is a terrible idea, but you're doing it anyway.
Apparently. I sighed, turning to face my too perceptive little brother.
Does that make me stupid?
He considered the question seriously.
Maybe, but also maybe brave. You're always telling me that scared and brave can exist at the same time.
When did you get so wise?
I have an excellent role model.
He hugged me carefully, mindful of my injuries.
Just don't get hurt, okay? I can't lose you too.
You won't lose me.
I promise.
Later, lying in the enormous bed in the master bedroom, staring at the ceiling and listening to the unfamiliar sounds of Tribeca at night, I thought about promises and protection and the dangerous man who'd looked at me like I was something precious.
My phone buzzed with a text. Sleep well. You're safe. I'll make sure of it.
DM.
I typed back. You should sleep too. Even mob bosses need rest.
His response made me smile.
Can't. Too busy thinking about tomorrow. About you.
That's a terrible idea. Seems to be my specialty lately.
Good night, Nadia. Good night, Dante.
I fell asleep with my phone clutched in my good hand, and for the first time since the explosion, I didn't have nightmares. Instead, I dreamed of dark eyes and gentle touches and the impossible possibility of something beautiful growing in the midst of chaos. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm of normalcy and danger intertwined. I learned to recognize the security personnel who rotated shifts outside the apartment. Marcus, with his military bearing and dry humor. Chen, who brought me coffee every morning without being asked. Elena, who taught me basic self-defense moves despite my healing ribs. I learned which streets were safe for walking and which required the armored car that felt like a mobile prison. I learned to sleep through the sound of Alexei's nightmares and wake instantly at any unfamiliar noise. And I learned Dante Marchesi in ways I'd never expected. He came for dinner that first night, taking me to a small trattoria in Little Italy, where the owner greeted him like family and seated us in a private back room. We talked for hours about his childhood in Naples before his family immigrated, about my parents and the car accident that had stolen them, about the weight of responsibility and the cost of survival.
My father wanted me to be a doctor,
he admitted over tiramisu, his expression distant with memory.
He had this dream that I'd escape the life he'd built. That I'd be legitimate, respectable.
What happened?
He was killed when I was 19, shot in the street by rivals who thought eliminating him would fracture our organization. His jaw tightened. They were wrong. I took over, consolidated power, and spent the next 5 years making sure everyone understood that the Marchese family was stronger than ever. Do you regret it? Not becoming a doctor? He was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the white tablecloth. I regret that I never had the choice. But no, I don't regret protecting my family, my people. Someone had to. It might as well be me. The second dinner happened 3 days later, then a fourth. Then they stopped being separate events and became routine. He'd appear at the apartment after Alexei went to bed, bringing food or wine, or once, absurdly, gelato from a place in Brooklyn that he'd driven 40 minutes to reach because I'd mentioned craving it. We'd sit on the couch overlooking the Hudson, talking until the early hours about everything and nothing. He told me about the complexities of managing territory and respecting old alliances. I told him about my dreams of going to college, of maybe becoming a teacher, of building something that mattered. You already built something that matters, he said one night, his arm draped along the back of the couch, his fingers occasionally brushing my shoulder in absent gestures that made my breath catch. You saved a life. You protected your brother. You survived impossible circumstances with grace. That's not building. That's just surviving. Surviving is the foundation. Everything else comes after. His dark eyes held mine with uncomfortable intensity. When this is over, when you're safe, I'll help you go to school. Any program you want. Any university. You deserve that chance. You can't just pay for my life, Dante. Why not? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Let me use it for something good. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Let me give you the future you should have had before I complicated everything. But even as we built this fragile connection, the danger never fully retreated. Sophia briefed me weekly on threats. A Kozlov soldier spotted near Alexei's school, a car following my security detail for 3 blocks before being intercepted, encrypted communications suggesting another attempt was being planned. Each update was delivered in her calm, professional tone, as if discussing weather patterns rather than murder plots. They're getting desperate, she said during one briefing, her tablet displaying surveillance photos of men I didn't recognize. The Kozlovs lost significant ground when their assassination attempt failed. Other families are moving into their territories, sensing weakness. They need a win to reestablish credibility. And killing me would be a win. Killing you would hurt Dante in ways that territorial losses never could. Her expression was sympathetic, but honest. You've become important to him, Nadia. Everyone sees it, which makes you the most valuable target in the city. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it just made me tired. I'd spent my entire life trying to be invisible, to slip through the world without drawing attention, to survive by staying small and quiet and unnoticed. Now I was the center of a mob war, the focus of assassination plots, the weak point in Dante Marchese's armor. I should leave, I said quietly. Take Alexei and disappear. Change our names, move across the country. It would be safer for everyone. You'd be dead within a month. Sophia's bluntness was almost reassuring in its honesty. The Kozlovs have reached beyond New York, and Dante would tear apart every city in America looking for you, which would create its own disasters. She leaned forward. The only path forward is through. We eliminate the threat, or we negotiate peace. Running just delays the inevitable. That night, when Dante arrived for dinner, I confronted him. Sophia says the Kozlovs are getting desperate, that they're planning something. He stilled, his hand frozen in the act of opening the wine he'd brought. Sophia talks too much. Sophia tells me the truth, which is what we agreed on. No secrets, remember? I moved closer, forcing him to look at me. What aren't you telling me? I'm handling it. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. He set down the wine bottle with careful control, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. Nadia, there are things happening that I can't discuss. Not because I want to keep secrets, but because knowing would put you in more danger. I'm already in danger. At least let me understand why. He was quiet for a long moment, internal struggle playing out across his features. Finally, he sighed. The Kozlovs made an offer. They'll stop coming after you if I give them 3 blocks in Brighton Beach and a cut of the port operations. That's a good deal. You should take it. I'm not taking it. His voice was flat, absolute. I don't negotiate with people who threaten what's mine. I'm not yours. Aren't you? He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands framing my face with a possessiveness that should have alarmed me, but instead made something hot and dangerous unfurl in my chest. Tell me you haven't felt this thing between us. Tell me I'm imagining the way you look at me, the way you lean into my touch, the way your breath catches when I get close. That's not... It is. His forehead pressed against mine, his breath warm against my lips. I'm falling for you, Nadia. Probably fell the moment you handed me that receipt with your hand shaking and your eyes terrified but determined. You've become essential to me in ways I can't explain and don't fully understand. So no, I won't trade your safety for territory. Not ever. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're brave and fierce and would do anything for your brother. I know you hate being protected, but accept it because you're practical. I know you cry during sad movies and sing in the shower and take your coffee with too much sugar. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. I know that when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be human instead of just a weapon in an expensive suit. The confession broke something open in my chest, releasing feelings I'd been trying to contain for weeks. This is a terrible idea, I whispered. The best ones usually are. When he kissed me, it was nothing like I'd imagined. Gentle at first, questioning, giving me every opportunity to pull away. When I didn't, when I instead fisted my hands in his sweater and pulled him closer, the kiss deepened into something that felt both inevitable and earth-shattering. He tasted like wine and promises, like danger and safety intertwined. His hand slid into my hair, careful of my healing injuries, holding me like I was something precious that might shatter if he gripped too hard. When we finally separated, both breathing harder than we should have been, his eyes held mine with devastating intensity. I need you to understand something, he said, his voice rough. If you do this, if you choose this, choose me. There's no going back to normal. You'll be mine in every way that matters. Under my protection, yes, but also in my life, part of my world. All the danger and complexity that comes with it. I'm already in your world. Not like this. This would be choosing it, accepting me, with all my flaws and violence and the blood on my hands. He pulled back slightly, giving me space to think. I won't trap you, Nadia. If you want to walk away, I'll respect that. I'll keep you safe from a distance. Make sure you and Alexei have everything you need. But I won't... I kissed him again, cutting off the words, answering his question with action instead of argument. When I pulled back, I met his stunned expression with a small smile. I'm choosing you. Terrible idea and all. The relief and joy that transformed his face made him look years younger, almost boyish. You're sure? I'm terrified. But yes, I'm sure. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. A claiming that made my knees weak and my heart race. His hands mapped my body with careful reverence, avoiding injuries, learning what made me gasp and what made me melt. We eventually made it to the couch, a tangle of limbs and whispered promises and touches that promised more but held back, both of us aware that Alexei slept just down the hall and that some lines shouldn't be crossed yet. But it was enough. More than enough. I fell asleep in Dante's arms that night, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear, his hand stroking my hair in a rhythm that felt like safety. For the first time in weeks, I let myself believe that maybe we could survive this. Maybe love was enough. I should have known better. The attack came 4 days later, and it came for Alexei. I was at a doctor's appointment, getting my cast removed finally, cleared to resume normal activities with some limitations, when Sophia's call came through. Nadia. Her voice was tight with controlled panic. There's been an incident at Alexei's school. He's safe. He's with our people. But we need to move both of you now. Terror turned my blood to ice. What kind of incident? 2 men tried to grab him during lunch period. Chen intervened. There was a confrontation. School's in lockdown. Police are involved. We're extracting Alexei through a back route, but you need to get to the safe house immediately. The doctor was still talking, saying something about physical therapy and follow-up appointments, but I was already moving, already running for the exit where Marcus waited with the car. Where's Dante? I demanded as Marcus peeled away from the curb with enough speed to draw honking horns. Handling the Kozlov response. He'll meet you at the safe house. Marcus's expression was grim. This was bold, even for them. Trying to snatch a kid in broad daylight from a school full of witnesses. They're desperate. Is Chen okay? He's fine. The two men aren't. But Nadia... He glanced at me in the rearview mirror. This changes things. They went after your brother. That's a line even most criminals don't cross.
We drove for 40 minutes, leaving Manhattan entirely, heading north into Westchester. The safe house was a sprawling estate hidden behind tall walls and security gates that looked like something from a movie. Marcus drove through 3 separate checkpoints before finally pulling up to a main house that could have been featured in architectural magazines. Sophia met me at the door, her usual composure slightly cracked. He's in the living room. Chen's with him. He's shaken but physically unharmed. I pushed past her, following the sound of Alexei's voice. He sat on a leather couch, wrapped in a blanket despite the warmth of the house, talking to Chen in a rapid stream of Russian that suggested shock. When he saw me, his face crumpled. Nadia! I crossed the room and pulled him into my arms, holding him as tight as I dared while he shook against me.
You're okay. You're safe. I've got you. They knew my name, he said against my shoulder, his voice muffled and scared. They walked right up to me and said, Alexei Volkov, you're coming with us. I tried to run, but they were fast, and Chen just appeared out of nowhere and... Shh, it's over. You're safe now. Chen stood respectfully to the side, his knuckles split and bleeding, his shirt torn. I'm sorry, Miss Volkov. They got closer than they should have. I should have been more vigilant. You saved my brother's life. Don't apologize for that.
I looked at him over Alexei's head, hoping he could see my gratitude.
Thank you. Truly.
He nodded once, then quietly left the room, giving us privacy. I held Alexei until his shaking subsided, until his breathing evened out, until some of the terror leaked away. Eventually he pulled back, wiping at his eyes with the back of his hand.
I want to go home, he said quietly. Our real home. Not the fancy apartment. Not this place. I want to go back to Brighton Beach, where things made sense. I know, Malyash, but we can't. Not yet. When? His voice cracked. When does this end, Nadia? When do we get to be normal again?
Before I could answer, before I could lie and say it would be soon, the front door burst open. Dante strode in like a storm made flesh, his suit spattered with blood that I desperately hoped wasn't his expression carved from granite and fury. His eyes swept the room, landing on me and Alexei, cataloging that we were alive and whole. Some of the tension bled from his shoulders. You're both okay. Physically. I stood, careful not to dislodge Alexei. What happened? Where were you? Sending a message. His voice was flat, deadly. The 2 men who tried to take Alexei are dead. So are the 3 men who planned the operation. And I've made it very clear to Viktor Kozlov that if anyone from his organization comes within 100 yards of either of you again, I'll burn Brighton Beach to the ground. The casual recitation of murder should have horrified me. Instead, I just felt tired. This can't continue, I said quietly. Living like this, always looking over our shoulders, always waiting for the next attack. It's not sustainable, Dante. Not for me, and especially not for him. I gestured to Alexei, who was watching our exchange with wide, frightened eyes. I know. Dante ran a hand through his hair, displacing the careful style into something wild. Which is why I'm ending it. Tonight. What does that mean? It means I'm meeting with Viktor Kozlov, neutral ground, negotiated terms. We settle this permanently, one way or another. You can't. Sophia appeared in the doorway, her expression alarmed. Dante, he won't negotiate in good faith. This is a trap. Probably. He shrugged with disturbing calm. But I'm tired of playing defense. It's time to force resolution. By walking into an ambush? I moved toward him, grabbing his arm. That's suicide. It's necessary. His hand covered mine, gentle despite the violence still singing in his veins. Nadia, they went after Alexei. A 14-year-old boy who's never done anything except have the misfortune of being your brother. That line can't be uncrossed. I have to respond, and I have to do it in a way that makes clear there will never be another attempt. So you're going to get yourself killed to prove a point? I'm going to end this war before anyone else I care about gets hurt. He cupped my face, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized I was crying. Trust me. I've been doing this a long time. I know how to handle men like Viktor. And if you're wrong,
If it is a trap and you don't come back? My voice broke. What happens to us then? Then Sophia will take care of you. She has instructions, resources, everything you need to disappear and start over somewhere safe. He pressed his forehead to mine. But I'm not going to die tonight, Nadia. I have too many reasons to live now. He kissed me, soft and sweet and devastating, a goodbye that tasted like blood and promises. Then he was gone, taking Sophia and half the security detail with him, leaving me alone with Alexei and Chen and the terrible certainty that I'd just let the man I loved walk into death. The hours that followed were torture. Alexei eventually fell asleep on the couch, emotionally exhausted. Chen remained stationed by the door, stoic and solid, and I paced, wearing a path in the expensive carpet, checking my phone obsessively for updates that never came. Around midnight, Marcus appeared. "There's news." My heart stopped. "Is he alive?" "The meeting is still ongoing, but it's..." He hesitated, choosing words carefully. "Complicated. I need to be there." "Absolutely not. Dante was very clear that you stay here where it's safe." "I don't care what Dante said. Take me to him. Now." Marcus studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "Against my better judgment. But if he kills me for this, I'm haunting you." We drove back into Manhattan to a warehouse in the meatpacking district that looked abandoned, but clearly wasn't. Armed men flanked every entrance, security that suggested this meeting was anything but casual. Marcus led me through a side door, down a hallway that smelled of salt and metal, to a room where voices filtered through, tense, arguing, dangerous. "You're asking me to give up territory and pay reparations for a conflict you started." Dante's voice, hard and cold. "That's not negotiation. That's surrender. You killed 8 of my men." Another voice, heavily accented Russian. Viktor Kozlov, presumably. "That requires compensation. Your men tried to murder me in a restaurant full of civilians, then attempted to kidnap a child. You're lucky I'm willing to negotiate at all instead of ending this the old way." "The old way would see you dead, Marchese. Don't pretend you have the advantage here." I pushed open the door before Marcus could stop me. The room was large, barely furnished, just a table and chairs where 2 groups faced each other like armies preparing for war. Dante sat on one side, flanked by Sophia and 3 men I recognized as his senior lieutenants. Across from him, Viktor Kozlov held court, a bear of a man in his 50s with cold eyes and scars that mapped a lifetime of violence. Everyone's hand moved toward weapons as I entered, everyone except Dante. His eyes found mine, widening with surprise and something that looked like fear. "Nadia, what are you..." "I'm ending this." I walked to the center of the room, positioning myself between the 2 factions, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Both of you, this stops now." "Miss Volkov." Victor's smile was ugly. "How kind of you to deliver yourself. It saves me the trouble of collecting you later." "You're not collecting anyone." I met his gaze without flinching. "You want revenge for your dead men? Fine. Take it out on me. I'm the one who warned Dante about the bomb. I'm the one who disrupted your assassination. This whole war started because of my actions, so make me the end of it too." "Nadia, don't..." Dante was on his feet, but Sophia held him back with a hand on his arm. "Let her speak," Sophia said quietly. I turned to Dante, letting him see the determination in my face. "You told me you won't trade my safety for territory. But I'll trade myself for Alexei's safety, for peace, for an end to this madness." "Absolutely not. It's not your choice." I looked back at Victor. "I'm offering myself as resolution. You take me, do whatever you want with me, and in exchange, you leave Dante's organization alone. You stop targeting him, his people, and especially my brother. You get your revenge, and everyone else gets to live." Victor leaned back, studying me with disturbing interest. "You think your life is worth that much? I think ending a war is worth anything. And I think you're smart enough to recognize an opportunity when you see one." I kept my voice level despite the terror clawing at my throat. "Taking me alive is a better victory than killing Dante in an ambush. You get leverage, propaganda, and a way to declare victory without losing more men. It's strategic." For a long moment, Victor said nothing. Then he laughed, a booming sound that made me flinch. "You have Gelezo, iron. I respect that." He stood, moving around the table with dangerous grace. "But Miss Volkov, I think you misunderstand the situation. I don't want you. You're a waitress, a nobody who got lucky. Killing you would be meaningless. Then what do you want? What I've always wanted. Recognition that the Kozlovs are equals to the Marcheses. Territory, yes, but more importantly, respect.
He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could smell vodka on his breath.
Your boy there refuses to give me that. He sees us as invaders, criminals beneath his notice. That disrespect has cost blood on both sides.
I turned to Dante.
Is that true?
His jaw was tight, but he didn't lie.
I don't negotiate with people who use car bombs in civilian restaurants. And I don't negotiate with people who think they own New York by divine right, Victor shot back.
Looking between them, these two dangerous men locked in a battle of pride and territory and old grudges, I saw the real problem. This wasn't about me or Alexei, or even the assassination attempt. This was about ego and respect and the stupid, masculine inability to back down.
Fine, I said.
Then neither of you gets what you want. Victor, you don't get territory or revenge. Dante, you don't get peace or safety for the people you love. You both just get more death and more war until someone finally wins, or you both bleed out. I headed for the door. I'm taking my brother and leaving New York.
Tonight. We'll disappear, change our names, build a new life somewhere you can't reach us, and you two can keep killing each other until there's nothing left to fight over. Nadia.
Dante's voice was sharp.
No.
I spun to face him, letting him see my anger and fear and exhaustion.
You said you wouldn't negotiate over my safety. Fine. Then I'm removing myself from the equation entirely. Alexei and I are done being chess pieces in your war.
The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Victor spoke.
What would you suggest, Miss Volkov? Since you're clearly the only person in this room with any sense.
I took a breath, thinking fast.
You want respect?
Fine. Dante formally recognizes the Kozlov organization as equals. You get 2 blocks in Brighton Beach. Not the ones you demanded, but 2 blocks he chooses that won't damage his core operations. In exchange, you provide information about the traitors in his organization who helped plan the assassination. You both agree to a 5-year non-aggression pact overseen by a neutral family. And most importantly, I looked between them. You both swear, on whatever you hold sacred, that Alexei is permanently off limits. He's a child. He stays innocent of this world forever.
And what do you get out of this arrangement? Victor asked. I get to stop being terrified every time my little brother goes to school. I get to maybe build something resembling a normal life. I get to not watch the man I love die in a war that never needed to happen.
I felt tears threatening but pushed them back.
That's worth any concession either of you could demand.
Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling me into his arms despite the audience.
You love me,
he said against my hair, wonder in his voice.
I'm an idiot. We've established this. You're the bravest person I've ever met.
He pulled back to look at me, his hands framing my face.
And yes, I agree to her terms. All of them.
Every eye turned to Victor. The Russian mob boss studied us for a long moment, calculation clear in his expression. Finally, he nodded slowly.
Da. I agree. On one condition.
What? Dante's tone was wary.
When you marry this girl, and you will marry her, I can see it in your eyes. I'm invited to the wedding.
Victor's smile was genuine this time.
I want to see the woman who ended a gang war with nothing but courage and good sense. She deserves celebration.
Despite everything, I laughed. It was slightly hysterical, but it was real. Dante's arm tightened around me.
Deal. You can even sit at the head table.
They shook hands, these 2 dangerous men, sealing peace with Alexei's safety and my love as the currency. Sophia immediately began discussing implementation details with Victor's lieutenants. Lawyers appeared from somewhere, drawing up documents that would make the agreement binding in the strange legal-illegal world of organized crime. And I stood in Dante's arms, shaking with relief and residual terror and the slowly dawning understanding that we'd survived.
Take me home,
I whispered. Please, I need to see Alexei. I need to know this is real.
It's real. I promise you, tesoro mio. It's over.
We left the warehouse hand in hand, walking into the Manhattan dawn with Sophia and Marcus trailing behind. The city was just waking up. Delivery trucks rumbling past, early commuters heading to subway stations, the sky turning from black to gray to gold. It was beautiful, normal, peaceful, everything I'd been fighting for. Epilogue. 6 months later. The church in Little Italy was packed with people from two worlds that should never have mixed. Dante's extended family and associates filling one side, my small handful of friends and Alexei on the other, with Viktor Kozlov sitting smugly in the front row like he'd personally arranged the entire event. I stood in the bride's room, staring at myself in a dress that cost more than our old apartment's yearly rent, my hands shaking as Sophia helped with my veil. "You're allowed to be nervous," she said gently. "It's your wedding day." "I'm not nervous about marrying him. I'm nervous about tripping walking down the aisle in these heels." She laughed. "Very practical. He chose well." A knock at the door preceded Alexei entering, uncomfortable in his new suit but grinning. "You look beautiful, Nadia. Like actually beautiful, not just sister beautiful." High praise from a 15-year-old boy. He hugged me carefully, mindful of the dress. "Are you happy? Really happy?" I thought about the past 6 months, moving into Dante's home in Westchester, learning the rhythms of his world, watching Alexei thrive with proper medical care, and a school where he wasn't constantly afraid. I thought about lazy Sunday mornings and stolen kisses, and the way Dante looked at me like I was his entire world. "Yes," I said simply. "Really happy." The ceremony was beautiful. Traditional Catholic, performed by a priest who'd baptized Dante as an infant, and didn't ask too many questions about the groom's occupation. When Dante lifted my veil and saw my face, his eyes shone with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Ti amo, Nadia Marchesi," he whispered as he slid the ring onto my finger. "I love you too," I whispered back, "even though you're still a terrible idea." "The best ones usually are." At the reception, Victor made a booming toast about courage and love conquering war, slightly drunk and absolutely sincere. Alexei gave a speech that made half the guests cry and the other half laugh. And Dante and I danced to a song about impossible loves and happy endings, his arms around me, his heart beating steady against mine. "Any regrets?" he murmured against my hair. I thought about the scared server who'd scrawled 5 words on a receipt 6 months ago, about the bomb and the hospital and the terrible choice that had led to this impossible, beautiful life. "Not a single one," I said honestly. "You?" "Only that I didn't meet you sooner." He pulled back to look at me, his dark eyes full of love and wonder and gratitude. "Thank you, Nadia, for saving me, for choosing me, for building this life with me despite everything. Thank you for being worth saving." We danced until the stars came out, surrounded by family and friends, and even former enemies, celebrating something that should never have worked, but somehow, miraculously, did. Because some loves are strong enough to end wars, some courage is fierce enough to change destinies, and sometimes a note warning about danger becomes the beginning of something beautiful. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.